Hey, this is Michael Lindsay, and I have a 2019 Suzuki RM-Z250 project bike with a Stage 2 JGR motor package, Showa A-kit suspension, some other goodies I built for a buddy to race at Mammoth. JGR just announced these engine kits recently. They have a Stage 1 and Stage 2. I'm not going to go into a ton of details between the differences. I actually have a video where I was building this engine. I go through all the components that are in the kit, how they went about them, and also some info on the dyno charts. I'm sure people want to know what kind of power this makes. That's all going to be inside of that video. What I can tell you a little bit about this power as a teaser though is it did beat a Yamaha with a GYTR kit on the dyno. So that's already something pretty interesting. And it was very interesting on the track. Of course, I rode it before I dynoed. I didn't want anything to spoil my opinion of the motorcycle. The stock RM-Z250 was a big improvement for 19. Sadly, some things with the chassis balance and suspension really held it back in shootouts, but the engine packages actually come a pretty decent way. It's really kind of on par with the Kawasaki stock now, so it's nothing to sneeze at. It's still towards the bottom of the charts, but it's in that competitive range. Especially as a mid RPM engine with a little bit of short shift, it's really good. The JGR kit though, I was very impressed with how much broader it made the power. And that's really what the Suzuki needed help. If you just focused on its strengths, it'd be faster, but it would still be really hard to ride. They've added a lot more bottom end torque and a lot more towards the top range. So the current Suzuki comes on decent at the bottom. It's not very crisp or well mapped, but it does have decent low pull and then a really strong mid-range, and albeit it pulls farther in the RPM range than the old bike, it goes flat still pretty early, so it's not worth revving out. So it makes shifting a chore on this bike as you're constantly going from second up to fourth, even fifth on some tracks, and all the way back to second for almost every corner. The biggest thing the JGR kit has really done is opened up the torque coming off the bottom. I found myself being in third gear in almost every corner that I was normally in second, and the ability to pull that gear so much farther. On a lot of tighter tracks, it seriously will take 1 to 2 shifts out of a section. Even on bigger tracks, it's doing the same thing for me. And a really big thing is the mapping. This kit does come with a Get ECU ignition. It has 2 maps in it. One is the standard Get map. The number 1 map is the one tuned by JGR. The number 1 map is very crisp, very responsive. But honestly, map 2, the Get one, to me pulls a little bit longer in the top end. Both maps have really good reasons. Outside of what comes in the JGR kit, I have added a full Hinson clutch just for durability reasons, just to get something that's a little bit more crisp feeling to the fingertips on the clutch, something that just responds more than I would like. And then also Yoshimura RS4 exhaust system has been added. Naturally, all the mapping duties and flow duties with the head that JGR has done with this has been built around this exhaust system. So if you're gonna buck up and go for one of JGR's kits, not to say you can't run another exhaust, but pretty much not running a Yosh might be a little detrimental considering all the work that they've done in the first place. I was able to bum a set of Showa A-kit suspension to use on this bike and test. It has a very similar setting to the JGR spec that Alex Martin is running, albeit with a slightly heavier spring rate. I've tested the stock bite. I have dropped the spring rates on those, which I generally recommend for most general users. I think it really helps the bike considering the chassis is very rigid. It gives it great turn-in response, just an overall snappy character, but it also beats you up in a lot of places. By dropping the spring rates, it definitely helps the comfort of the bike for most typical 250F users. But as the speeds start to increase, because that chassis is rigid enough, it definitely applies a lot of energy to each end of the bike and it turns into a bit of a teeter-totter. This setting, I ran something a little bit more stiffer than I would have normally expected to and a little bit higher spring rate, similar to what some of their national level riders are. It's definitely not easy to ride at low speed. It's the type of bike that is now set up to go gun-ho at all times. And it's interesting because that chassis does apply so much pressure each end, if you push it hard enough, it works great. But it's another example of how kit suspension still needs to be tailored for the end user. I have a setup here on this that most guys racing nationals would love, but the general Joe Blow would probably not like if they bought this stuff. Basically what I'm getting at is no matter what you're doing, it's best to have suspension tailored or set up for you. Whether it's production stuff or kit stuff, yes, kit stuff is gonna have better damping characteristics, some components that are gonna give you an advantage, but if it's not set up for you, not tailored to your needs, you're kind of wasting your time. Couple additions from Pro Taper. We had an Evo bar to try to add some comfort to the chassis, try to take some energy before it gets to me and my shoulders per se. And the gearing with them, I also bumped up one tooth in the sprocket. If you do that to the stock bike, the power band is still a little bit too narrow, but with as much as we've been able to open it up with this JGR kit, it was worth adding a tooth and giving up a little bit of that spread to get a little bit more response all over. So I'm sure anybody watching this video wants to ask, is the $3,500 Stage 2 JGR kit worth it? It really depends on how you look at the situation. It's the same argument that I would give somebody about kit suspension. It is a big initial investment, but then the components are separate. Because with this kit, you're getting an all new cylinder head that they've poured, all the valve train, cam towers, cams. That means you're taking all those stock parts off and putting them on the shelf. You can put those back on the bike when you sell it, take all this JGR stuff and move it to your next Suzuki 250 if you're committed to the brand and you're staying on it, racing, etc. Or you can sell it separately when you leave, which if you play your cards right, you can end up with a lower investment in the end, but you have to have the money to put up front. But how about for the actual performance gain for that price? For the $3,500 with a really good engine builder, yes, I think you can accomplish more. But this kit is bolt-on ready, it's proven, it's very broad power, so that's the other argument to look at. So if somebody wants to look at me and goes, is it worth it? You have to weigh it. If you just want to sink your money into your stock bike and get the best bang for that $3,500, you can go to an engine builder. If you have a set plan to move with these components to stay with the brand, I could say this is a very good option for you. And for the guys that have the Suzuki 250 and just want to get a little bit more, look at the Stage 1 kit. The ECU and piston help a lot. It broadens out power, increases a lot. Yes, not as broad as what you're getting with this package, but it's such a lower investment and something you can add in the first time you're going to do a top end anyways.